Briony, it's great to talk to you. I know that your work really is at the intersection of psychology and technology when it comes to trying to understand who's spreading misinformation and how to stop them. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I'm a cognitive psychologist, but I'm really lucky to work in collaboration with a number of these really talented computer scientists. So we work looking into who is spreading misinformation, who is exposed to it, and I'm, as a psychologist, most interested in how to correct misinformation and disinformation.
Speaking of that, what I gather you looked at first was political misinformation and disinformation. And there's a really provocative title of one of your publications, "They Might Be a Liar, but They're My Liar."
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Right, so that actually came out of my Fulbright collaboration. It was the second paper to come out of that work. We decided to investigate when you correct politicians' misinformation, things that they've said themselves, do their supporters change their voting preferences? And yeah, we found that people are actually really wonderful at updating their belief when you give them a correction, even if they support the politician, but their support remains completely stable. And we found this replicated both on the right and the left.
So really, even if they've got the facts, their belief in the individual takes precedence.
Absolutely. And in a way, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think a lot of the fact-checking companies were actually quite thrilled. Because I think before, or especially like in the last couple of years, people have been really worried that, you know, giving someone a correction, people won't change their belief at all, or it might even increase. And what we found was completely opposite. I think we were just thrilled that people were becoming more informed. And if it's something other than the politician is telling the truth that's informing people's preferences, it's just a more complicated story than that. But hooray, facts kind of won there.
And well, as a journalist, I certainly like that. But when it comes to COVID-19, misinformation and disinformation have been a big issue. Are you studying that as well?
Yeah, we are actually. We're starting to study it. It's still early days. It's remarkable how much the world has changed in such a limited amount of time. And also what makes this a really tricky time to be studying COVID misinformation is that science in general just doesn't know what the facts are yet. So it's this space where there's not a lot of what we know to be true. So in a way, it's this kind of perfect storm where a lot of mis and disinformation can just rush in to fill this void. People are notoriously quite bad at simply understanding, well, we just don't know yet, as the answer.
Well, and when it comes to that, I know you have concerns around the potential health risks for people if they don't get the right facts. Can you talk about that?
Huge. It's huge. I actually think this is probably one of the biggest differences between political misinformation and health, is that the risk to people's livelihoods and their mortality is very real. And we've seen already some really serious consequences of misinformation. And I think we're only beginning to understand the ramifications. I also think health misinformation in general is incredibly understudied. Not only that, like it's underfunded, like we haven't been able to do the same research. I think, if anything, the extent of the coronavirus misinformation is really rallying both the field and the funding to I think a research area that's really sorely needed.
There is, in the field of medicine, the concept of a super spreader, somebody who can spread a virus just because of all their points of contact. Is there something similar when it comes to disinformation and misinformation?
Yes, absolutely. In the collaboration in my postdoc studies with Professor David Lazar, we found exactly that. There were people who we labeled super spreaders. And we found that 80% of the fake news was actually spread by 0.1 of the population. So we had a sample of about 1,600 individuals, and of those, it was 16 people that spread 80%, which is massive. That was really unexpected.
And why is that spreading so far and wide? How are they doing it?
That is such a great question. We're really looking forward to investigating these individuals more because it's just so fascinating. We think that we labeled them cyborgs, actually, in that we think that they are spreading so much, not only misinformation, but information in general. These people tweeted, I think, on average 73 times a day. And we think they're doing that with help of automation tools. These tools that help you share, like, retweet, etc. So
let me ask you as we get ready to close here, that Fulbright scholarship, how important was your scholarship in terms of what you're doing now and what you've been able to accomplish?
I think it just gives you a bit of a rocket launcher forward, for sure. Like, I think it gives you an opportunity to like run your own project as a mid-level PhD student. I think, yeah, and also just the people you meet along the way. Like, it's just most of either the people I work with currently or the research I'm doing is like directly due to the Fulbright. Yeah, definitely.
Knowing what you know about misinformation and disinformation, and given where we are right now with this pandemic, what's your greatest worry about the spread of misinformation and disinformation?
That's a good question. My biggest worry, and I've already seen this around quite a lot, is the phenomenon that I am studying somewhat, is this backfire effect, where you give someone a correction and it makes people believe in it even more. It strengthens their belief. And I think I've seen a lot of people referencing this, but it's actually, we're not finding it to be like a really robust phenomenon. People are really good and really more often than not accept people's corrections. I guess my big fear is that people are not going to be correcting the misinformation because they're afraid of this phenomenon when we're not finding it to be this robust effect. It very rarely, if ever, happens. And I think, yeah, I'm concerned that if people stop correcting the misinformation when they see it, this misinformation might flourish.
Well, Briony, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking time away from your research to give us a little bit of the down low on what's happening in this important area.
Thanks for having me.